Hello students, I'm Nahi and you are watching me on my YouTube channel, Applied Linguistics with Nahi. In today's lecture, we will try to learn the difference in between the words and the morphemes with the help of a few examples. And then we will learn the types of the morphemes, which are not more than 3, I should say. And then we will study a few features of all the types, and then we'll learn what is the productivity of the morpheme. So let's start our video. This is basically the part 2 of lecture number 1, in which we completed the definition of the morphology and the definition of the words and then the types of the words. This will be part 2 about the morphemes, especially the difference in between the words and the morphemes. Uh, Students, I should say that the learners or the students of early semesters of linguistics are usually confused and are unable to have uh, the idea about the difference line in between the words and the morphemes. So unless, they consider it uh, understanding it with some clarity, uh, it's really difficult for them to have some distinction in between the two. I will try that in a very simple way. I'm able to convey this clarity to you people for your convenience. You know that a word is the combination of alphabets which has a meaning. Like I said that there are 3 types. I mark them as type 1, 2, and 3. I mean to say that simple words, complex words, and the compound words. Uh, I have extracted a few examples like cup, bring, teach, teacher, prayer, playing, plays, played, slowly, anti-clockwise. Now, if you consider uh, a few last examples where there are the later parts marked in red ink, like ER, ing, S with plays, ED with played, and slowly, LY attached at the end with the word slow, the adjective, and the word anti-clockwise. Here you can see that, it's a word which has uh, uh, very clearly 3 components marked in different inks, like anti, clock, and wise. Here you can see that, there are 3 parts of the same single word. The examples are mixed examples, as there are the words with the kind of the with the kind of this situation where there is just one word and which is indivisible, having no further division. Like, the cup word, the word bring, the word teach. Here in these 3 examples, you can see that we cannot divide the word cup into further components of fragments. Similarly, we cannot divide the word bring or teach. But if we consider the word teacher here, that is why I have marked them in black and in red ink, red ink, so that I am to show that there are the components which are divisible, the teach and er. Uh, Let me say you that in a word, there is a possibility because of a simple word, the component is just one and it is not divisible. But in the case where there are multiple number of the components in a word, the word is divisible into further parts. Each part of that word will be considered as morpheme. This is what I should say. Each part which can be divided in a word where there are multiple number of the components, like I have given you the examples, I would pick the word anti-clockwise, because there are three words or three components, rather, I should not say word, rather components like anti-clock and wise. They're all combined together. Anti is placed at the beginning of the word clock, while wise is placed at the end of the uh, clock word. Here the word clock is basically the stem or the root word, where there is one prefix anti is attached and the wise as the suffix is attached. In this example, you can see that, I mean, there are each of the component in this complete word is a morpheme. So I should say that in the word anti-clockwise, there are three morphemes: anti, one, clock, two, and wise, three. So there are three morphemes into this word. Now the question arises that what are types of the morphemes, uh, whether they are more or equally as the word types are. In the previous lecture, we learned that there are three types of the words, like simple words, complex words, and the compound words. There is a natural question and should really come into the minds of the students, whether morphemes are also having, I mean, the same number of the types, or they are the similar, or they are different from the types of the words. I should say you that as far as the types of the morphemes are concerned, you should focus on to just one thing, that there are uh, uh, three types of the morphemes. But we cannot, I mean, say them as we said, that simple words, compound, and the complex words. It has its own types. Like, I mean, they are grouped as free morphemes, and then the bound morphemes, and the cranberry morphemes. Now, what are free morphemes, and then what are bound morphemes, and then what are cranberry morphemes should be a question. If we consider the simple words, we can say that, I mean, in simple words, there is always just one component, and the simple words can be considered as free words or indivisible units. Like I gave you the examples of teach, play, and build. I have put a word into a bracket here, uh, declaring it as a lexical morpheme. So I guess that I should explain this to you, that what is lexical morpheme. Now see that all the morphemes which are free, autonomous, and can stay at their own, and they are single, in the sense that they are indivisible, are considered to be the lexical morphemes. Uh, Here you see that the teach word is the word which is not divisible, and it can stay at its own. And if you are willing to use it into a sentence, of course, you can easily use it. The same case is with the other word also. That's another matter, that what is the grammatical category of the word. We will discuss it later. Here it is not needed. Only, I mean, what you should focus on, the point is that you should consider just one thing, whether it is divisible or indivisible components. If in a word it is an indivisible component, and there is just one single component which can stay at its own, you should see that this component would be considered as free morpheme. The free morphemes are also called as lexical morphemes. Now, coming on to the other type of the component, which if I consider the example teacher again, and just focus on the component or the linguistic element ER only, I would say that this has a particular function when it is attached at the end of the word teach. Uh, because if we attach this er to the word teach, it becomes teacher, which gives a new meaning to the former word teach. Because by then, of course, we mean to say a person who teaches to someone. So teach is a verb, but the teacher becomes an adjective, not from the point of view that the class uh, or the grammatical category is changed. It's something different. I would again, ask you to be focusing on just one point, that whether in a word, whether the component is divisible or indivisible, whether we can divide a word into further components or not. If we are able to divide the components, uh, you should uh, keep one thing in your mind, that yes, in this word there are multiple number of the morphemes. But if it is indivisible, of course there is just one single morpheme, and that is for sure the lexical morpheme, right? Because if we consider this example, er, I mean the combination in which er is used, of course there are other uh, 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 morphemes also, in terms of suffixes and in terms of prefixes, which give new meaning to the root word or the stem or the main word or the autonomous word. This prefix or any suffix is basically a kind of the part or the component in a word which gives a new meaning to the root word when they are attached to the basic word. And by this way, I should say that it performs a function. And because of this sort of special role to the linguistic element, we should say that they fall into a different category than the free morpheme. And that category is called grammatical morpheme, because they perform some function into the words. So you should also, add a term lexical morpheme and the another term as the grammatical morpheme. Lexical morphemes are the free morphemes, while the grammatical morphemes are the bound morphemes, because they will have to have some stem or the main word or the root word to get attached with them to give meaning. So here, by this explanation, I guess that you would be having the idea that yes, there are two very clear types of the morphemes, like the lexical morphemes or the free morphemes, and the grammatical morphemes or the bound morphemes. Morpheme is basically the morphological unit, right? So they have just two roles to play: one, to give meaning, and if it is giving some meaning, being autonomous, it is a free morpheme. But if it is performing some function into the word, it is a grammatical element. And because of the fixation, this combination is possible. Only the prefixes and the suffixes are participate into these combinations, where there is a multiplicity of the morphemes in a word. In a word, this is what I am emphasizing. So let's consider another example: teaching, where there is teach word with the suffix ing, which is a tense suffix. And here you can see that there are two components. One is the lexical morpheme or the free morpheme, and the other is the grammatical morpheme or the bound morpheme. Let's have uh, a few more examples. And here you can see that I have made a few columns and the rows to box them separately to discuss them with me at convenience. Like at the top, you can see that I have marked the lexical morphemes and the grammatical morphemes. And then what I have added as examples are teach, beauty, fat, and quickly. If we consider the word teach, it is grammatically or by a class word. It is open class, it's a member of open class. And then if we consider the word beauty, it is a noun and it is also a member of the open class. If we consider the word fat, it is an adjective and belongs to an open class. And quickly word, it is an adverb and belongs to the open class. But I want to emphasize on to this area is that primarily they are usually the lexical morphemes are considered to be the content words, and they primarily are nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, as I have given the example of teach, beauty, fat, and quickly. Teach is a verb, beauty is a noun, fat is an adjective, and quickly is an adverb. So for most of the cases, in most of the cases, the lexical morphemes are usually the content words and they belong to the open class containing nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and the adverbs. If we talk about the grammatical morphemes, of course, I mean, they're considered to be the function words also, and in them the pronouns, determiners, conjunctions, prepositions, auxiliary verbs, moral verbs, qualifiers, question words are included. The examples which I have added into this box or column are to, in, on, out, or from. These belong to the closed class. And then and, but, although, or, closed class. And then can, why, what, will, am, close class, very, never, always, which are basically the qualifiers. And again, I mean, they also belong to the close class. If we talk about the bound morphemes, so these examples were from the free morphemes. Free morphemes can fall as the content words or the function words. They may be the lexical morphemes, they may be the grammatical morphemes. Similarly, if we talk about the bound morphemes, again, I mean, there can be the derivational morphemes in the bound morphemes, and there can be the inflectional morphemes. What I'm saying is that if we are talking about the bound morphemes, they may fall or they can be considered or they can be the derivational morphemes or the inflectional morphemes. The examples are derivational morphemes. See that I have given the examples as regenerate. The prefix re is used into this word generate by having the re or the prefix being at the beginning of the word. Similarly, another example, monetization. Here you see that the later component shun, tion, is the suffix, and there is the word comparable, and the later component able is the suffix. A large body of the prefixes and suffixes are usually the bound morphemes under the derivational morphemes. Derivation is basically a process of word making, and I will definitely at length explain it in the next video when I would be talking about the types of the morphology. You get my point? That here I have marked them, that bound morphemes are usually the prefixes and the suffixes, right? And there can be the infixes also, but in English, if we consider the examples of the words or the vocabulary, we will see that, I mean, there is rarely some examples of infixes. You know that prefixes are the linguistic elements which perform the grammatical function into the words, right? And they are attached either at the beginning or at the end. Infixes are basically the linguistic elements which become into the middle of the word. But in English, we do not have any significant example of this type of the fixation. So English is such a language where there is a scanty number of the examples rarely available. In most of the cases, the infixation is not available in English language. In other languages, of course, I mean, there is a margin. And then again, if we are talking about the bound morphemes, there can be the derivational morphemes as well as the inflectional morphemes. You see that in the English language, there are 8 inflections and they are attached to the words. Like, I mean, the inflections as the S used to make words plural, ED to add uh, at the citation form of the verb to make them the past tenses. En also, I mean, the past participle uh, linguistic element used in the verbs. Ing is also a tense marker which is used with the citation form of the verb to make the progressive verb for using into the sentences or making tenses. Similarly, EST is another inflection which is really used into the superlative form of the adjectives. Similarly, ER is a comparative degree used, comparative degree marker used into the adjectives to make comparisons. And another inflectional morpheme is ly, and that is really added at the end of the adjectives to transform or change them into adverbs. And there is the apostrophe s also, which is usually used along with the citation form of the verbs like plays, cuts. The examples are cats, girls. Now here you see that this S is for the to make the noun plural, while girls shows the possession of something relevant to a girl. And similarly, we use S again. I mean, like we used this inflectional morpheme in the case of cats also to make a singular noun into a plural. Then blacken, EN, right? Blacken, blackened, blackened. We use this en morpheme, the inflectional morpheme, to construct more words. And of course, this will also become a part of the types of the morphology in the next video or next lesson, when we would be working on to the types and the methods of the morphology in English language. Then again, I mean, the word playing, here the ing morpheme is used. Strongest, est, superlative, adjective, inflectional morpheme is used here. Stronger, er, inflectional morpheme is used. Ly in quickly is used. If we talk about the features of the free and the bound morpheme, we can say that the free morphemes, which are lexical morphemes, are considered to be semantically and distributionally more autonomous than the grammatical morphemes, which perform as the function words in the sentences in the form of words. If you look into this column, you would have that they can be inflected. When we say that they can be inflected, means that out of those 8 inflection in English, those inflectional morphemes are used. Here I have given the example of paper, slim, and run. Okay, fine. Let's consider this word paper, and let's use an inflectional morpheme of to make it plural, like papers, right? So paper, by adding S inflectional morpheme, we can make it inflected. Similarly, if we consider the word run, running, so we are adding ing at the end, which is kind of inflectional morphology. Okay, fine. They can be inflected. The content words can be inflected if they are the lexical morphemes and they are the free morphemes, and then they are more autonomous and they are rich conceptual content. And if we are talking about the free morphemes, but uh, the grammatical morphemes like to, the, and of, these are basically the function words, usually considered as the prepositions, determiners, and the kind of the list I shared with you in the previous slide. They are semantically and distributionally less autonomous and cannot be inflected. So see that this is the contrast to the first type, that in free morpheme, the lexical morphemes can be more autonomous, they are less autonomous, uh, and then they can be free morphemes can be inflected, but the function words or the grammatical morphemes cannot be inflected. Uh, the free morphemes as content words are richly conceptual content words, while the function words actually mark grammatical relations into the words. Now let's see a few features of the bound morphemes. Bound morphemes can be used or can be found into the derivational process of word making, and they are considered as to be the derivational morphemes, like re, ize, and able. The words like, I mean, we had the examples in the previous slide: generate, monetize, and comparable, right? They create new lexemes, right? Because of these words, we can create new lexemes, or the words, new words. They are closer to the stem. Usually they are placed closer to the stem or the main word or the root word. More restricted productivity and more open class. So they usually, most of the examples belong to the open class, like, I mean, they belong to verbs, nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. Similarly, they can be more restricted product. They have more restricted productivity because we can make more and more words by adding these morphemes to the stem or the root words. Again, I mean, the bound morphemes, if they are the inflectional morphemes, uh, the features are that they mark word forms, one thing, more distant from the stem, highly productive, and closed class. The examples are like, I mean, the ed word, est, the inflection, the eight inflection. I would certainly be giving you a very satisfactorily lengthy detail onto these morphemes by the time I would be giving you the lecture onto the types of the morphology and the methods of the morphology. Do not get upset because I'm hurriedly covering up these features, but we will again discuss this slide by the time when we are doing our next video related to the types of morphology and the methods of morphology in English language, that how we can make more or new words in English language. Now, students, the cranberry morphemes. In contrast to free morphemes and the bound morphemes, cranberry morphemes are a type of the bound morphemes, which carry neither meaning nor grammatical function. I guess that now you understand this detail. When we say that it is a kind of the morpheme, basically these are the bound morphemes. You see that, I mean, the morpheme, with the exception of the free morphemes, rest of everything that relates to the prefixes or the suffixes fall into the bound morphemes, right? Because they only have to perform some grammatical function into the word. The cranberry morphemes are a type, are bound morphemes. They fall into the type of bound morphemes, but they carry neither meaning nor grammatical function, but serve to distinguish one word from the other. The examples are mit, M-I-T, mit, in the word permit, right? Permit. You see that, I mean, similarly in another example, sieve, in the word perceive. You see that, I mean, the word sieve comes in so many words. Here only, I mean, just one example is given, but we'll do more examples in the next videos. Twilight, the morpheme twi in the twilight. So these were morphemes, morphemes, mit, sieve, and twi are the morphemes which fall into the category of the bound morphemes, but they neither have the meanings nor have some function. Only, I mean, they become the part of the word, right? They become part of a word, but they do not have any meaning in them or the grammatical function. So students, the last slide for rendering the answer that what is productivity of a morpheme. It's just simple in a few lines. That a morpheme is said to be highly productive if it is found in more and more combinations. So a morpheme is liable to be considered highly productive if it is found in more and more combinations. Examples, like, I mean, we usually see that most of the words, they have the morphemes like un, in, re, etc. The words in which these are coming are, you can also create a long list of the words containing these morphemes. But I have sorted out just a few examples for your consideration and for your learning, and I say them like the words uncertain, uncertain, unpopular, unethical, unable, unavailable, untrue, and so on. See, there are the dots, and you can add long list, as many number of the words, as many are coming into your mind. So do a practice, write down, make lists, search net. The lists are available, and only, I mean, your passion, your interest is needed if you really want more clarity, more understanding, and more knowledge about the topics related to the language. I won't say language learning, language knowledge, because the students, it will become a new topic then if we talk about language learning and the language acquisition. And you know this, that there is a difference. So we cannot overuse or misuse any word in linguistics, because everything has its own specific, relevant place, detail, and conditions in which that is used. The next examples are reply, rewrite, reread or reread, reaction, replace, recover, recovery, incomplete, insufficient, inability, insecurity, invalidity, invalidation, invalidated. So students, for today, this is the last sentence from my side for today's lecture. I hope that the whole detail will certainly help you establishing some concept about the difference in between the words and the morphemes, how they are connected and disconnected somehow, how they are associated with one another, how they are part of the other, how one is the part of the other, what are their types, what are their features, and what is the productivity. I guess that, and I look forward to more detail, the exclusive detail by the time we would be doing the lecture related to the types of the morphology and the methods through which the construction of the words is done in English language. Again, I mean, these morphemes, the inflectional morphemes, especially the inflectional morphemes, the derivational morphemes are going to come one more time in our next video. I hope you would definitely be interested in watching it again. Please, if you like my teaching or my lectures, subscribe my channel for more videos. Thank you very much for your time. Best of luck to everyone who is watching this video and my channel.